January 15, 1996 Wrestling Observer Newsletter. World Championship Wrestling turns first ever profit in 1995. Biggest drawing feud in pro wrestling history as of 1996. Pena and Televisa breakdown, tons more. After 7 years in business and an estimated $30 million in losses, World Championship Wrestling turned its first profit in 1995. The profit, said to be rather small, came despite added expenses of producing a live television show weekly, and in a sense even saying the company was profitable should have an asterisk beside it. As part of a large corporate structure, there are ways of putting expenses on others' books, and it is rumored that perhaps the biggest expense of all, the Hulk Hogan salary, is largely on the Turner Home Entertainment books. In addition, Turner Broadcasting now pays WCW approximately $4 million per year for its 3 cable television shows, which obviously makes all the difference in the world, as if that was done during the Bill Watts or Jim Herd eras, the company would have at least come close to profitability several years. The other key reasons the company was profitable are a major video game sale, which without it, the company even with all the changes would have still lost money this year, and the fact that the pay-per-view money from Halloween Havoc, with the Flair-Hogan retirement match, and Starrcade in 1994 didn't come in until 1995, while the 1995 Havoc, World War III and Starrcade, which produced far less profit, will count on the 1996 books. In addition, ridding the company of big salaries, Big Van Vader, Steve Austin, Rick Steamboat and Dustin Rhodes in particular has been mentioned as a reason the company didn't lose money, although the theory behind paying someone a big salary is that they are worth that much and more in revenue coming in, or they shouldn't be getting that big salary, so in theory the company, if they had those performers on the big shows, should have taken in more revenue as well. Lex Luger probably came in making more money than in any of the above-mentioned names except Vader, and there were numerous part-time additions, along with the key acquisitions of Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, although the latter two didn't come in at anywhere near the dollar figure the guys like Austin and Rhodes were making. The company was also said to be holding off numerous other expenses and a few other additions until the first of 1996 in order to make sure it would be profitable this year, since with the Turner/Time Warner merger, there is more pressure on the individual companies to show a profit. Going into 1996, however, the company will be hard-pressed to maintain that position. They will incur the cost of going live theoretically about 45 to 50 times in 1996, rather than 16 times as in 1995, and I bet several of those 16 times the expenses were put off until the 1996 books, and they'll be working in a market where the pay-per-view numbers will almost assuredly, based on recent figures, show a marked decline. For example, Halloween Havoc was down nearly 40% this year, understandable somewhat since they were coming off the Hogan-Flair retirement match, although it was a heavily hyped first Hogan Giant meeting this year, and Starrcade revenue was probably cut nearly in half this year as compared to last year. Since September, when the two groups have started the Monday Night Wars, the leading revenue stream of producing events, the pay-per-view shows, are into almost a freefall, which really bodes poorly for 1996. The obvious solution would be to cut back on free television, but there are many reasons, particularly with WCW being run by a television conglomerate and WWF having to keep pace with WCW on television or coming off to media buyers as the secondary group, why that isn't going to happen. Keiji Muto and Nobuhiko Takada officially went into the record books this week as the biggest drawing feud in pro wrestling history after drawing their second consecutive sellout to the Tokyo Dome. Takada captured the IWGP Heavyweight Championship with a cross-arm breaker, UFC armbar, in 1751 in the rematch of the 10-9 match which drew the largest live gate in wrestling history. New Japan's traditional biggest event of the year, which occurs every January 4th, entitled this year 96 Wrestling War in Tokyo Dome, was built once again around the same New Japan vs. UWF, a matches that set the record in October. This version drew a turnaway crowd of 64,000 fans, selling out nearly 2 weeks in advance, and a gate estimated at between $5 and $6 million along with a television audience estimated at 14 million. It was probably the second largest live gate in history, certainly no lower than third on the all-time list, was the 9th largest recorded crowd in history and the 3rd largest crowd ever in Japan. Barring a surprise, this will turn out to be the biggest money show of 1996. Although Muto and Takada were the main event, it was Antonio Inoki and Big Van Vader who stole the show, drawing by far the most heat with a reported 4.5 stars match which Inoki won with the cross-arm breaker in 14-16. Inoki, who turns 53 later this month, allowed himself to absorb a Cactus Jack-like beating from Vader in order to get the match over as a classic. It was reported to us that this was the single greatest performance of Vader's career, and if you factor in his age, probably of Inoki's as well. The show, which started at 3 p.m., was edited down to 2 hours that night, airing Muto vs. Takada, Inoki vs Vader, Hiroshi Hazi vs Kensuke Sasaki, and Jushin Liger's victory over Koji Kanemoto to win the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, along with finishing clips from the other matches, for a primetime network special of TV Asahi. The show did an overall 10.1 rating, which was a disappointment for the network, which was hoping for a 15. Surprisingly, the largest audience was for the Muto Takada title match rather than the Inoki match, doing a 13.8 rating. Still, TV Asahi officials were pleased enough that they are interested in doing one or two more live television specials in 1996. Videos of the show had already all hit video stores in Los Angeles amazingly by the next afternoon, and much of the rest of the West Coast by Saturday. The rest of the card will air over the next few weeks of the regular Saturday night New Japan television show. Vader was the only American wrestler to work the show, which is more evidence that the Japanese business has less need right now for foreigners, particularly Americans, which their business for decades was built on, than ever before. The record-breaking Tokyo Dome show in October contained no foreign talent. With the two Dome shows, New Japan successfully accomplished all its goals for the UWF-I feud. 1. It clearly established New Japan as the group with the toughest guys and destroyed the UWF-I shooting myth and shooting aura dead in its tracks. In fact, there were no chance for any of the UWF-I wrestlers on the show. 2. It sold out 2 Tokyo Domes. 3. It still came out with Nobuhiko Takada in position where he should be able to successfully headline against all the top New Japan guys in 1996 on major shows. They tried to emphasize that Takada is the first wrestler in history to hold all 3 IWGP titles, heavyweight, junior heavyweight, and tag team. 4. It was able to make an even more serious-looking style marketable to the general public, but getting its own wrestlers over as the ones who were the most real and most serious. All reports we received were that this was a very good show. It was different from previous years in that the matches were shorter, since they were doing a more serious style, with the card lasting 3.5 hours as opposed to close to 5 hours in the past. Most of the matches were said to have been good, with 2 of them, Vader vs Inoki and Liger vs Kanemoto, said to have been outstanding. 1. Yuji Nagata and Shinjiro Otani and Tokumitsu Ishizawa of New Japan defeated Kenichi Yamamoto and Kazushi Sakuraba and Hiromitsu Kanehara of UWF. When Nagata made Yamamoto submit to a cross-arm breaker in 10:15 in a heated opener. 2. Hiroyoshi Tenzan pinned Satoshi Kojima in 9:24 with a diving headbutt. Kojima returned from CWA in Europe for this show. Kojima didn't get over big on his return, as apparently while in Austria, he was taught to wrestle just like Tenzan, who worked there the previous year, so the two did a match where they did the same spots to each other, but in Japan, Tenzan has been working like that for 1 year. 3. Liger pinned Kanemoto with the Stardust Press, Hayabusa's finisher, in 1859 to capture the junior heavyweight title. Told this was a fantastic match as well, with both men pulling out every move in their arsenals for near falls back and forth, including Liger doing an Asai moonsault out of the ring and Kanemoto doing a dive as well. Liger used 3 Liger bombs and a backbreaker to set up the finisher, which I'll describe next week when I get to see it for myself. 4. Shiro Koshinaka of High pinned Masa Chono in 9:49 after 2 power bombs with a small package. Not one of the better matches on the show. The surprise result makes sense later in the show. 5. Hiromichi Fuyuki of War pinned Yoji Anjo of UWF, and 6:42 of what was described as an American-style garbage match. Fuyuki and Anjo are the 2 most hated of the Japanese wrestlers, so this was a battle of the big heels and both were booed. This match completely killed the UWF-I gimmick, since Anjo willingly did a gimmick-style match. Geto and Jado came with Fuyuki and interfered numerous times, right in front of the ref. The UWF-I guys in Anjo's corner, like Yoshihiro Takayama and Tatsuo Nakano, wound up fighting with Geto and Jado outside the ring. Anjo sprayed something in Fuyuki's face on 1 or 2 occasions. It ended up with Geto and Jado pulling out duct tape, and they taped all over Anjo's face to make him look like a mummy, and did a triple pile driver on him to lead to the pin. Although in some ways it was a comedy match, they did nothing for humor, but there was a big pop when Fuyuki put the tape over Anjo's mouth, because everyone hates Anjo because he's got a big mouth. This match made the point loud and clear, because Anjo did a job for someone who was considered a smaller promotion gimmick wrestler. 6. Kensuke Sasaki pinned Hiroshi Hazi in 16:36 with the Northern Lights bomb. Sasaki came out wearing the U.S. heavyweight title. Hazi wasn't in his best condition since he's now a full-time senator in the Japanese Congress, but is a good enough and smart enough worker to still have a very good match, although he got tired. After the match they did a ceremony and Hazi thanked the fans for supporting him for the past 10 years, and he and Sasaki both cried in the ring, and a lot of the fans cried as well. They never mentioned the word retirement, although the fans were certainly left with that impression, and Sasaki said he can't wait for Hazy to return someday. 7. Inoki forced Vader to submit in 14-16. Lots of power moves and near falls. We'll have a complete description next week, but the highlights including Vader throwing Inoki around hard with an unprotected German suplex and also doing a moonsault, both of which Inoki kicked out of at 2.9. Both men juiced, Vader juicing big time and Inoki receiving a hard way cut under the eye similar to a boxer because he wanted Vader to work stiff with him. After a power slam, Inoki quickly clamped the armbreaker on for the submission. 8. Riki Choshu beat Masahito Kakihara via WF. I submit in 5:46 with the Scorpion Deathlock after his trademark lariat. Choshu blocked Kakihara's kicks and pretty much wouldn't sell for his style, even though up to this point New Japan had kept Kakihara protected since taking over the company, as he hadn't done any jobs. In that way it wasn't a good match. 9. Shinya Hashimoto pinned Kazuo Yamazaki in 9:18 after a brainbuster. The storyline here is that Yamazaki was knocked out by a dangerous DDT by Hashimoto, but still kicked out but never fully recovered and couldn't remember the final moments of the match. It was Yamazaki's first job in a singles match since joining New Japan. 10. Takada won the title from Muto. The match had great heat, but Muto wasn't at his best in the first half and never really put Takada over until the finish. Takada didn't look that good and Muto didn't do much early. The finish was said to have been even better than the finish of their first match, which, even if you disagree with the end result, was an excellent finish. After the match, they got Muto out of the ring quickly. I believe he's taking time off to do a movie, and Koshinaka hit the ring. Takada and Koshinaka have a major rivalry in 1986-87 dating back to the IWGP Junior Heavyweight and Tag Team titles. Koshinaka challenged for the title, explaining his win over Chono and basically claimed he had Takada's number, since Koshinaka won the junior title from Takada at the end of the feud, but Takada said there were more worthy challengers such as Hashimoto. Hashimoto explaining his win over Yamazaki, whose style is closest to Takada's of anyone, then grabbed the mic and said that he was the number one contender and the two had an in-ring stare down. After that, Sasaki also hit the ring and said that he was going to be the one to regain the belt for New Japan, so they basically have the next 6 months of business set up. The television situation regarding AAA in Mexico is up in the air after a breakdown between Antonio Pena and Televisa. The breakdown this past week resulted in no Saturday evening wrestling show on Televisa, the largest network in Mexico equivalent to a combination of NBC, ABC and CBS in the United States. The Sunday morning show consisted of 3 hours off MLL, most of which was taped on January 2nd before a crowd of about 100 fans at Arena Coliseo and was said to be the worst television in Mexico in years. The breakdown stemmed from a Televisa directive to AAA to run all of its television tapings in the Distrito Federal, Mexico City metropolitan area, in order to save on travel costs. Since Televisa's contract calls for paying travel expenses to television tapings, and with the economy worsening, they wanted to cut back in that regard. Pena's belief was that with MLL and AAA both taping 2 house shows per week in Mexico City alone, it would kill the market, which is already pretty much dead. While AAA drew some great crowds in 1995, although it was down from 1994, only one big crowd all year, the December 3rd debut at El Torreo in Naucalpan, formerly the #1 wrestling building in the country which hadn't even housed a show in more than 1 year, came in the Distrito Federal. The best houses were on the road in cities like Madero, near the Yucatan Peninsula, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Tijuana, and Nuevo Laredo, the latter 3 far north near the U.S. border. When Televisa wouldn't back down from its directive, Pena immediately pulled his group off television, leaving the network with having to air a taped soccer game on Saturday night in its place. Pena was also upset at Televisa over the belief that they lied to him a few months ago when they told him they weren't going to air up-to-date MLL matches anymore and that they would ban wrestlers like Santo and Blue Panther from television. Pena hired his own camera crew to tape matches over the weekend in the Distrito Federal. He has another meeting this week with Televisa which may straighten the situation out. They'll be looking at a new television outlet, which no matter what it is would be a great drop in national exposure for the product. It's inevitable given the climate among the wrestlers that if the promotion doesn't get on television in one form or another soon, that many of the wrestlers will panic and try to jump ship. For the United States, without resolving this situation, it would mean the 3 to 4 hours weekly on Galavision, 2 hours on Saturday, 1 or 2 hours Monday nights, would turn into strictly MLL. The belief, probably correct, is that the ratings for both Televisa and Galavision will drop in a major way since MLL doesn't have as many marketable names and its style is far more old-fashioned and less heated. Ratings on Galavision have shown a significant drop over the past year when the 2-hour Saturday block went from being AAA to half and half. For whatever reason, After the first week of the new Lucha Lunes show on Monday nights on Galavision being on MLL show, with an AAA opening, the second week the show aired AAA Best of 1995 highlights for at least 2 hours. Vince McMahon's second shot at WCW on the January 8 Monday Night Raw was a cannon, bringing up the issue of anabolic steroid testing. In Billionaire Ted's Wrestling War Room, a skit made a strong implication that wrestlers like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, now that they are no longer in the WWF, were back on steroids. In addition, McMahon claimed he had already written a letter to Ted Turner, then issued a grandstand challenge to Turner immediately after the show in an online message to implement a stronger steroid policy. The message appeared to be carefully disguised as looking like a challenge but may have been a legal defense against possible civil action regarding the piece, which less than subtlety implied Hogan and Savage were doing steroids. The new WWF characters, Billionaire Ted, Nacho Man, Hoaxster and the other board members were sitting around a table to come up with a new slogan for Ted's Wrasslin'. They never used the term WCW. One board member said, "How about uncooked, uncensored?" And Ted said, "We've already stolen that idea." Another said, "How about Ted's Wrasslin' Unbelievable?" A takeoff on last year's WWF theme, but changed to Ted's Wrasslin' Not Believable. Ted responded, "This was no time to start telling the truth." Another said, "This is where the good old boys play," and another came back with, "This is where the old boys play." Again Ted said this was no time to start telling the truth. Then Nacho Man came up with, "This is where the big boys play," and everyone agreed. But then Nacho Man said, "But what if we have to take a legitimate test for steroids?" And the hoaxer responded, "Don't worry, we're not in the World Wrestling Federation anymore." The closing line was the WWF New Generation, "There's nothing old or artificial here." Immediately after the show, McMahon released a statement saying, "The World Wrestling Federation is concerned about the health and well-being of its talent." Although on tonight's Raw program we used satire to demonstrate a point about the WWF steroid policy as opposed to Ted Turner's WCW, we realize that the use of steroids and other drugs of abuse is a serious issue and can pose health risks. Therefore, in a personal letter to Ted last week, I challenged him in the interest of the health and well-being of all the athletes under his umbrella, as well as mine, to implement a policy which would adhere to the same strict standards which the WWF adopted several years ago. I also indicated that perhaps the only way this could occur is if we jointly select an independent drug policy advisor, collection agency and testing facility. The WWF has taken the lead in developing a program with teeth in it. Hopefully, Ted Turner will see the value in protecting his athletes as well. Satire is a legal protection for any form of a slander or libel lawsuit, which there were rumblings about the next morning within WCW. The WWF also did 2 brief skits with a character called Scheme Gene, parodying his 900-line come-ons. Gene kept saying he had big news about a person who was signed to the Royal Rumble, but you have to call the hotline because he can't say the name on television. Jim Ross then asked him who it was, and Gene said it was Vader, and McMahon in the background said that it figures, implying Okerlund teases a hot-breaking story on his 900-line teases, and what he delivers is news that is already old news. It isn't as if WCW hasn't left itself wide open for criticism on both topics. There was irony of Jim Ross being the one in the Okerlund segment when he did similar pitches regularly while he was in WCW. Ross segments were rarely if ever totally fabricated, as Okerlund's stuff often is. Ross teases never came close to the level of sleaze Okerlund's did, but he was often at least on the border of questionable taste in his own come-ons at times. And for Vince McMahon to act high and mighty about steroids is the biggest irony. All indications and beliefs among wrestlers are that the Titan steroid testing system is far more comprehensive and effective than that of WCW. However, the message someone who claims to be interested in protecting his athletes, an interest that came to fore only when outside media and legal pressure forced him to adopt this stance after building a company around steroid abusers for nearly a decade, is hollow at best. Just a few weeks ago he was involved in negotiations to bring Jim Hellwig back into the WWF. I recognize Hellwig would be put under the same program as the rest of the wrestlers, and I believe no double standard would have been allowed in his case, although there appears to have been a double standard in 1992 when it came to Sid being caught cheating on a steroid test before his WrestleMania match with Hulk Hogan, and not being suspended for either that match or the subsequent European tour. At the same time, what message is being sent to young wrestlers looking for a chance to make money in this business? I get letters and talk to them regularly, and the belief still is that you need to get big to get to the big time. Thankfully, over the last year or two you hear more talk about getting good being more important than getting big, but that is something new that happened after both media and government pressure put on WWF. Wrestlers all over the world have taken steroids because they believe it'll aid them getting a job with WWF or WCW. Some have been successful in doing so and still have been as late as this past year. Of course most aren't, but most don't think it out rationally either. And many who do think it out rationally still come to the rational decision that taking steroids is a good career move. I have serious doubts that many of the new generation additions to the WWF, some of whom are very good wrestlers, some of whom aren't, would have gotten their jobs had they never used steroids to build bulk. Contrary to myths propagated by opponents of steroids or those wanting to use testing as an answer to a more complicated problem, people maintain a degree of the size and power they develop on steroids even when they are off steroids. That's why football players and track athletes take them in the off-season even though they have to get off them during the season or prior to a tested meet. Some of the really big guys in WWF may very well not be using steroids today, and some may be using drugs undetectable in testing. But if they had never used them, they wouldn't be nearly so big today. And there are more than a few who would never be serious players in this profession if you take their size gimmick away from them. McMahon has a right to cry foul or unfair playing field. He's been forced largely by outside forces like the Justice Department to run a relatively clean ship. Turner hasn't faced any similar pressure and the two are in competition with one another. No doubt WWF is the cleaner of the two organizations. And I'm all for anything that will bring focus to Turner and bring certain neon signs in WCW back to reality. But in attempting to hire Hellwig, McMahon comes off as a hypocrite of the first order. And don't believe for a second if any of the big-name WCW neon signs were to want a job with WWF right now and in the war period we're in, or even if we weren't, McMahon could make an embarrassing steal under WCW's noses. That McMahon would not hire them thinking it would set a bad example for the other wrestlers and upcoming wrestlers. WCW's response to the first Billionaire Ted segment, which was repeated all weekend on every show and heavily hyped for a new segment on Raw, was largely nothing. WCW adopted a hollow tagline that they are nicer and care more for their fans because they are putting their best matches on free television, in the form of a clash, this month as a thank you present while the WWF is raising the price of their pay-per-view show. Bischoff called the Royal Rumble the Royal Fumble. Bischoff referred to WWF as Titanic Sports, and pointed out that they are now charging fans to get their pictures taken with the WWF champion. WWF started doing the Polaroid gimmick at house shows over the weekend, charging fans $10 for a picture with them with Brett and the belt. Okerlund made a comment that some of the new generation stars being brought in for the Royal Rumble are so old they are getting close to Social Security. Bischoff also mentioned on more than one occasion that Nitro is the most watched wrestling television show in the world, which is far from the truth, and in fact, after this past week, WWF holds a microscopic lead in the Monday night ratings war. At this point, the WWF segments, while hypocritical, make their point and are funny as hell. WCW comes off as whiny and name-calling. WCW needs to emphasize its own strengths, make valid points, and quit the name-calling, or drop references to WWF completely. Right now, because it's something new, the WWF segments have caused some interest. In the long run, both companies, if they keep this up, would come off as petty and childish. If the segments continue for a long period, it'll lead to an erosion of interest in wrestling in general. Public Enemy, the first act truly created and gotten over entirely by ECW and its fans to the point the big companies were heavily interested, had their final match in their home base billed as House Party 96 at the ECW Arena in Philadelphia on January 5. Before another sellout crowd estimated at 1,150, the P defeated the Gangstas in their typical brawling bloody lots of objects supplied by fans style match, before leaving to start with WCW, which was scheduled for January 8 but with the snowstorm in the Northeast, Ted Petty, who lives in New Jersey, was unable to make it in for the scheduled Nitro debut. In what was described as a great send-off, similar but different to the August situation with Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko, Public Enemy invited several wrestlers, among them most of the regular babyfaces along with heels like Too Cold Scorpio, Sandman and the likes of Conan and Bubba Ray Dudley into the ring along with both Paul Heyman and Todd Gordon to do the Cabbage Patch with them before inviting the fans in the ring as well. The match itself was said to have been typical, although not having the level of heat of the matches earlier in the show, perhaps because the crowd was burned out from a lot of hot matches and angles earlier, and also because of the mixed reaction of the crowd that enjoyed seeing them but also many that were mad they were leaving. On the show, Heyman put together an angle to distract fans from dwelling on the departure of P and the impending departure of Cactus Jack, where Beulah McGillicuddy announced she was pregnant and said that the father was Tommy Dreamer. This certainly takes something to the extreme, being that Dreamer piledrove her for about the 35th time most recently at the New York show just 1 week earlier. The angle started with Steve Richards saying he wanted to be called Studley Steve because he was making out with Missy Hyatt, in yet another angle from New York, and then came out to Beulah, who backed off. Richards started saying how she was making him look stupid in public, but she still backed off and said she was pregnant, which stunned everyone. At this point Raven hit the ring and went after Richards, until Beulah stopped him by telling him that Richards wasn't the father. Raven then started calling her a bitch and worse, saying she should have remembered to take her pills and they're a different color each day to remind you. She said that Dreamer was the father, and when Raven was about to attack her, Dreamer came in and laid Raven out with a stop sign given to him by a fan while Beulah hit Richards with a frying pan. The only title change on the show saw Too Cold Scorpio regain the TV title, beating Mikey Whipwreck due to outside interference from Raven, who DDT'd Whipwreck, leading to the win. ECW debuted Rob Van Dam and brought back Shane Douglas and Mr. Hughes on the show. Van Dam, who will probably be a heel, beat Axel Rotten. Douglas and Hughes were back together, and Douglas said he'd teach Bubba Ray Dudley to speak English. Also expected in starting January 26th are the Headhunters, while Chris Jericho and Juventud Guerrera are scheduled to start in February. The latest reported pay-per-view figures from December seem to tell a message that had best not be ignored. Reports are that the Ultimate did around an 0.6 buy rate for its initial show on December 16th, however any question as to whether or not being on the same night as the Mike Tyson vs. Buster Mathis Jr. fight, which drew the largest primetime audience and rating in the history of the Fox network, was responsible when the replay showings did better than an astounding 0.4 buy rate. Semaphore expects the total audience for the show to hit 250,000, which would slightly top the 1.0 mark and be in line with what the Ken Shamrock vs. Hoist Gracie and Shamrock vs. Dan Severn matches did, but with the price increased from $19.95 to $24.95, it would be the biggest money UFC show in history, grossing an estimated $2.7 million. In addition, the taped New Year's Eve special, which aired 6 hours of highlights of the first 7 UFCs, did an 0.4 buy rate, or approximately $910,000 with minimal costs involved. The money figures listed may be slightly higher than they turn out to be because most cable systems were offering the two shows together as a package at $39.95. Purchased separately, they were $24.95 and $21.95 respectively, and it's unclear how many were ordered as a package deal. On the other hand, independent sources list both WWF and WCW shows in December of basically hitting new all-time lows. WCW Starrcade 95 did an estimated 0.36 buy rate, the second lowest buy rate in company history, approximately 83,000 buys, and $1.04 million company gross. Even WCW sources don't dispute that figure, which says how bad it must have been, with the company estimated the figure at between 0.35 and 0.40, but the company taking solace somewhat in that number because it beat the WWF. In comparison, the previous year's Starrcade with the Hogan vs. Butcher main event did approximately an 0.7 buy rate, which at the time, which shows just how much this industry changes in 1 year, was also considered disappointing. The WWF in Your House from Hershey, Pennsylvania, which most figured going in to be the weakest WWF pay-per-view show in history when it came to pre-show interest, did an estimated 0.33 buy rate, 76,000 buys, and an estimated $680,000, which would make it at best only marginally profitable. It would be the fewest buys of any WWF pay-per-view show to date, although with the price increase from $14.95 to $19.95 it probably beat the prior E when it comes to dollars. It should be noted that WWF's own internal buy rate claims are always much higher, often as much or more than double what other sources claim, and it's doubtful it will be any different with this show, although the company's internal figures admit the big shows are down significantly this year as compared with last year. However, WWF will be increasing the price of Royal Rumble and the other major events from $24.95 to $29.95 in 1996, with WrestleMania most likely staying at $34.95. Just last year, pay-per-view looked to be the golden goose that would save the industry when the house show business collapsed. This next year's golden goose to save the industry will be television company ownership of companies, because pro wrestling can still, even in this current oversaturation point, draw very competitive numbers by cable standards at a relatively low cost. Unfortunately, the most important point of the success of UFC as it relates to the pro wrestling industry, a lesson taught by what happened in Japan from 1988 to the present, when worked shoot fighting became a popular sport, is that shoots, or worked shoots, can be used to make pro wrestling more popular as a spectator sport, because things can be taken from the shoots and implemented into the works style that would be believable if integrated in a believable fashion. Despite more groups than ever, a worsening economy, and people seeing what the real thing looks like with the popularity of UFC in Japan, the past 2 years overall have been banner years in Japan, albeit overall 1994 being a better year than 1995. However, the general public during this same type of era will tolerate a lot less when it comes to other excesses of pro wrestling, such as ridiculous gimmicks and screw job finishes, something both All Japan and New Japan picked up on amazingly fast, and both companies ended up more popular than ever in the wake of opposition that worked a style that, by purporting to be real and looking different, would supposedly have exposed their high spot style as fake. Although All Japan has declined over the past 2 years for other reasons, when the second UWF started drawing so well, without weekly television, after a year where UFC drew more consistently on pay-per-view than pro wrestling despite having no television to get its names over mainstream and a lack of a mainstream wrestling media as in Japan so as to make the lack of weekly television not as important, the declining buy rates really aren't much of a surprise to people who can't pick up on an easy lesson that has already been played out elsewhere. But then again, if WCW and WWF paid attention to what over the past year has killed the business in Mexico, they wouldn't be walking straight into that trap either. WCW announced on its television this past week some changes from the original Clash lineup on January 23 listed here. Brian Pillman will be replacing Lex Luger in a single match with Eddie Guerrero. Luger and Sting will be working as a tag team against Bobby Eaton and Steve Regal rather than the original Sting vs. Pillman and Luger vs. Guerrero matches. The Public Enemy vs. Nasty Boys match is back on the books, with P using that name, and they announced on television the match we reported last week, with Conan vs. Psicosis, with them billing Conan as Mexican Heavyweight Champion, the actual Mexican Heavyweight Champion is Pierre Roth Jr., and this as a title defense. In addition, they will air a wedding between Sherry and Rob Parker, to be taped the previous Saturday, and have Disco Inferno vs. Kevin Sullivan and Alex Wright vs. Dean Malenko all shoehorned into a 2-hour broadcast. The tentative pay-per-view lineup for 2/11 in St. Petersburg at the Bayfront Center will be Ric Flair vs. Randy Savage for the WCW title, Hulk Hogan vs. The Giant, Harlem Heat defending the tag titles against Sting and Lex Luger, One Man Gang defending the U.S. title against Conan, Johnny B. Bad defending the TV title against Diamond Dallas Page, Public Enemy vs. Nasty Boys in a street fight, and Dean Malenko vs. Eddie Guerrero. For the next Ultimate Fight, on February 16 from Roberto Clemente Stadium in San Juan, besides the Ken Shamrock vs. Chemo Superfight title match, will be a David vs. Goliath tournament. The idea is for 4 fighters that weigh around 200 pounds to face 4 fighters with less technique and talent that weigh 300 pounds to create the intrigue of a skilled small man against a less skilled huge man. The idea was to largely bring in new fighters and not use any of the big names from the Ultimate and create new stars with the show, although as it turns out, there will be a few returnees. The Davids will be Paul Herrera, a former college wrestler in Nebraska who is Tank Abbott's best friend and is a street fighter type, Joe Moreira, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu protege of Rory and Gracie who is well respected within that world, Joel Sutton, who is 2-0 in alternate matches, and one more participant as yet not confirmed. An Iranian Olympic wrestler who captured a silver medal in 1988 that was on the list originally is looking unlikely right now due to the government workers' shutdown and problems both getting a visa to come into the U.S. and then into Puerto Rico. The Goliaths will be John Hess, 6'8", 295 pounds, but was in UFC 4 in Charlotte winning one match before bowing out because of a hand injury, Paul Verlins, 6'8", 325, Gary Goodwrench, a world super heavyweight arm wrestling champion, and Scott Ferrozzo, who holds one of the multitude of world super heavyweight kickboxing championships, and is said to be 6'7", 320 pounds. Besides the UFC, there are no shoot shows locked in with specific dates. EFC has moved its planned March date to April, who no specific date announced. WCC cancelled its 3/1 date and hasn't announced a new date. Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan, filed a lawsuit on January 4 against a Minneapolis woman and her attorney charging them with extortion. Bollea is suing Peter Johnson of the Minneapolis law firm of Johnson & Wood, and Kate Kennedy claiming that on December 24, Johnson sent a letter to Bollea at his home in Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of Kennedy. The legal papers claim that the defendants attempted to extort money from Bollea by accusing him of engaging in criminal conduct and threatening him with criminal prosecution. The letter enclosed copies of Minnesota criminal statutes which they claimed were applicable to Bollea, describing mandatory imprisonment penalties which they claimed would be applicable upon a conviction of Bollea, as well as threatened to bring a lawsuit against Bollea worth millions of dollars. The letter expressed a willingness to settle the complaint if they would contact Johnson by December 25, or Christmas Day, the very next day, and a letter threatened to file a police report and seek criminal charges as well as file the lawsuit if they didn't settle. The lawsuit claims the allegations in the letter were false and that the letter, being extortion, itself qualifies as a criminal act. According to a story in the January 5 USA Today, Johnson's partner, John Wood, was quoted as saying the letter dealt with claims against Hulk Hogan for reprehensible conduct of a sexual nature that went well beyond harassment. When she made an effort to resolve the claim without going public, they characterized it as extortion and proceeded to sue. No other details of the allegations were released by either side. Kennedy is believed to have worked in public relations for the Hulk Hogan's Postomania Mall restaurant at the Mall of America that Hogan had ownership interest in. Whatever is alleged to have happened is believed to have taken place on September 4, the night WCW taped its first Nitro in the mall. The story was widely reported in the Minneapolis area on local radio and television, and a wire service story with even less details than the USA Today piece ran in numerous newspapers on Saturday. The tabloid television show A Current Affair is believed to be working on a piece regarding the story. Hogan acknowledged the incident in a roundabout way on an interview on WCW Saturday night, saying he was willing to match stories with anyone whether they be in Las Vegas in reference to the Clash, New York, in reference to the skits the WWF has put on all its television shows, or in Minneapolis. Our second annual look at who the biggest drawing cards in wrestling were shows, like last year, it is the power of the promotion and not the drawing power of any individual that any study shows loud and clear. The most successful promotion of 1995 was New Japan Pro Wrestling, which drew sellout crowds with numerous different people on top. While lots of wrestlers like to take credit for being able to draw money, in most cases it is not the wrestler responsible for the bulk of the fans attending. A great drawing card in a weak promotion isn't going to draw impressive crowds. A fairly uncharismatic headliner in a promotion that's on fire and well booked will still draw relatively well. Nearly every time I hear about a veteran who was on top when the American business was stronger knocking current headliners for not being able to draw, I laugh about it. Those same veterans aren't drawing today either. As mentioned last year, the phrase drawing money is talked about with reverence, yet nobody really examined it in detail until last year. Last year's 12 biggest drawing cards when it came to shows headline that drew more than 10,000 fans were Kanan Pero Aguayo, Shinya Hashimoto, Bret Hart, Masa Chono, Love Machine, Cien Karas, Keiji Muto, Kensuke Sasaki, Nobuhiko Takada, Big Van Vader and Riki Choshu. Of that 12, Kanan, Aguayo, Hashimoto, Chono, Karas, Muto, Sasaki, Vader and Choshu remain among the top draws this year as well. Hart phased down from the top spot in favor of Diesel, fell out of the top 30 in the world, and behind Diesel, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon and Sid in his promotion. Takada, while headlining the biggest money show in history, lost a great deal of popularity during the year before his name was somewhat heated back up with the Muto match and fell off the top of the list, although he'll almost surely make the list in 1996. The other name that didn't repeat, Love Machine, of course passed away in November of 1994. Before looking at the biggest draws this year, we changed the criteria a bit to include both shows that drew more than 10,000 paid, as it serves no purpose to examine drawing power when tickets are given away, and since the US business is now based more on pay-per-view revenue than drawing large crowds to the live show, all pay-per-view shows that drew a company gross in excess of $1.5 million are included as well. When going through the list, the first conclusion we can make is that overall, the business is not as strong on a worldwide basis this year as compared to last year. When doing this last year, we had 75 shows that made the cut, and we no doubt had several that belonged on the list not included simply because they were left out for various reasons such as us not getting reports on them. This year, making it easier to be on the list because we are including pay-per-view shows that drew well, we came up with 64 shows, and that number should be basically almost all-inclusive, as we paid a lot closer attention to the subject this year. By promotion, New Japan had 17, AAA and WWF had 10, All Japan 7, WCW and UFC 4, UWF, and All Japan Women 2, and Rings, Weekly Pro Wrestling, FMW, EVA, Pancrase, EMLL and War all had 1. Naturally, that means that wrestlers from New Japan are going to dominate this list. So let's look at all the wrestlers who make the list 2 or more times and those who were on top in more than 50% of the big drawing shows for their promotion during the year. The top 2 draws were Shinya Hashimoto and Keiji Muto, both making the list 11 times. Based on the fact Hashimoto got gimmies from headlining one of the 2 North Korea shows, which fans were practically ordered to attend, and the Weekly Pro show, which had the strongest undercard in the history of mankind, and that it was Muto as the main draw for the biggest house in history on the 10/9 Tokyo Dome, which was basically sold on the top match. I'd rate Muto as the number 1 drawing card for 1995. 11. Shinya Hashimoto, 59%, Keiji Muto, 65%. 10. Diesel, 100%, Kanan, 100%, Pero Aguayo, 100%. 9. Masa Chono. 8. Mitsuharu Misawa, 100%, Cien Karas, 80%. 6. Toshiaki Kawada 72%, Kena Kobashi 72%, Akira Tao 72%, Hiroyoshi Tenzan Mascara Anyo 2000 67%. Poor Kensuke Sasaki, Big Van Vader 100%, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan 100%, Universo 2000, Octagon. 3. Scott Norton Razor Ramon Ken Shamrock 75%, Ric Flair Mascara Sagrada, Dan Severn 50%, Yoji Anjo Antonio Inoki, Ricky Choshu, El Hijo del Santo, Sid, Jerry Estrada. 2. Gary Albright Bret Hart, Stan Hansen Johnny Ace Jeff Jarrett, Bam Bam Bigelow Louisiana Parka Winners Nobuhiko Takada, Randy Savage, Shiro Koshinaka Manami Toyota, 100%, Toko Inoue, 100%, Oleg Toktarov, 50%, Junji Hirata, Rey Mysterio Jr., Cybernetico. The best next step is to take all the names with 3 or more to their credit and try to figure out what are the key factors that drew money this past year. Obviously charisma in some form is always going to be the most important factor, but exactly what were the key components of charisma this year? The most important factor in drawing money was legendary status, with 7 names making the list. Next on the list are perceived toughness, both legitimate as with proven credibility and perceived through either credible ring work or reputation, and wrestling skill, both with 6. Making the list based on legendary status were Aguayo, Karas, Hogan, Flair, Inoki, Choshu and Santo. With perceived toughness as one of the biggest factors in their drawing power, making the list are Hashimoto, Kawada, Vader, Norton, Shamrock, and Severn. Wrestling skill Muto, Misawa, Kobashi, Kawada, Michaels, Santo, and just plain luck of being in the right place at the right time, Tao, Mascara Anyo 2000, Sasaki, Universo 2000, Estrada, Sagrada, can't be overlooked. Holding the world title Hashimoto, Muto, Diesel, Misawa, Hogan, is also an important factor. I don't think Hogan drew appreciably more because he was champion, but in the other cases, there is no question the world title added to their drawing power because a world title that's over is going to draw for title matches. Other factors that seem to have some merit are huge size, Diesel, Norton, Vader, Sid, and being a great heel, Chono, Anjo. If there's anything this list shows just as last year is that having an outrageous gimmick or even a strong gimmick is totally overrated nowadays when it comes to drawing power. On the list, only one of the wrestlers, Octagon, is there because of his gimmick. The only outrageous gimmick performer to make the list the past 2 years was Undertaker. Only a few of the names have matinee idol looks, which a lot of people think is important, as only in the case of Michaels and possibly Ramon do looks really have much to do with them drawing people, as I don't think Shamrock's drawing power has much to do with having movie star looks as much as being legitimate. Although there are many great workers on the list, having acrobatic ring moves, while adding spice to the undercard, doesn't appear to draw on top, as only Michaels, Santo and Muto would really fit into that category. While many of the names on the list have great psychology, I don't think in any of the cases is it any major factor in their drawing power. From a size standpoint, 25% weigh in excess of 270, 35% between 235 to 270 and 40% less than 235. Last year's breakdown was 23, 37, 40, so that is amazingly consistent when studying 2 unrelated years. As far as age classification, and I'm using ages of January 1, 1996, 13% are under 30, 39% between 30 to 34, 29% between 35 to 39 and 19% are over 40. The oldest on the list are Inoki and Aguayo, who turned 53 and 50 respectively this month. The youngest are Tenzan, turns 25 on March 23, Anjo, 29 on March 28, and Kobashi, 29 on March 27. When it comes to working ability, leaving Shamrock and 7 out, 41% would be classified as top flight workers, 28% in the average to good category and 31% in the below average category. The emphasis on being a good worker dropped from last year when 57% of the best draws on shows that actually drew would be considered top workers. My read on this is that for guys that are trying to establish a name, work rate is important in making the name, but there are exceptions. Once the name is made, work rate declines greatly in importance. If a guy is put in a good position with a hot promotion, they can draw without being a good worker or even having ever been a good worker. However, there are people on the list I'd classify as being below average workers today that were top workers when they made their reputation they are now living off. Of those past 40, the so-called legends on the list, all have been big draws going back a decade plus and are basically living off their previously made name. In the case of Aguayo and Flair, they both still work very hard, but it is their name and reputation responsible for their current popularity. Of those over 40, the only 2 who aren't portrayed as babyfaces are Flair and Karas, both of whom receive generally a babyface reaction while working as heels anyway, so it again makes the point that it's virtually impossible to have an effective heel to be booed heavily after 40. For the most part, fans respect people that have achieved in their mind legendary status and want to cheer them. Hogan is the only post-40 wrestler on the list who wasn't a top worker in his prime. They tell me Cien Cars was, although I never saw him much, so it's hard for me to know, but I saw Aguayo a lot and he definitely was, and he's a unique character in this business. Severn, Flair and Vader were the only names on the list to headline shows in different wrestling worlds, US, Japan or Mexico, that made the list. Results: December 18th, Leon, Guanajuato, AAA, My Flowers and Pimpinela Escarlata, Big Gran Apaches IN2, Tornado and Torero and Principe Zafiro and Angel de Tepeyac, Be Espectro and Caras La Momia, and Kanai and Cebu Jr. Winners and Super Colo and Galactico, Be Blackjack and Jerry Estrada and Pero Silva, Octagon and Heavy Metal and La Parca, Be Pierroth Jr. and Psychosis and Pentagon. Cage match, Pero Aguayo Jr. and Rey Mysterio Jr. Be Juventud Guerrera and Picudo. December 28th, San Diego, WWF, 3600, Fatu and Barry Horowitz, Be Skip and Bob Backlund, Isaac Yankem, Be Marty Jannetty, Goldust, Be Bob Holly, Henry Godwin, Be Brooklyn Brawler, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Be Savio Vega. Cage match for WWF title, Bret Hart, Be Diesel, Ahmed Johnson, Be Rad Radford. IC title, Razor Ramon, Be 123 Kid. WWF tag titles, Smoking Guns, Be Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith, Undertaker, Be Yokozuna. December 29th, San Bernardino, California, WWF, 1800, Savio Vega and Fata, Be Bob Holly and Bob Backlund, Marty Jannetty, Be 123 Kid. WWF tag titles, Smoking Guns, Be Rad Radford and Skip, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Be Henry Godwin, Diesel, Be Goldust, Ahmed Johnson, Be Brooklyn Brawler. IC title, Razor Ramon, Be Owen Hart, Undertaker, Be Isaac Yankem. WWF title, Bret Hart, Be Yokozuna. December 29th, Cordell, Georgia, Peach State Wrestling, 425, Mike Jackson, Be Lee Thomas, Adrian Street, Be Sheep Donovan, Thomas won Blindfold Battle Royal, Ray Lloyd and R.D. Swain, Be Scott and Steve Armstrong, Ronnie Gossett and C. Mad Jack, French Angel, Frank Morrell, Be Bob Armstrong, Jim Bryant and Fred Avery, Be Botswana Beast, Giant Kimala 2 and Luscious Lonnie, Rob Van Dam, Be Billy Black, Be Ricky Morton to win Cordell City title. December 29th, Metzawal Coyote, UWA, Fugaz and Flama Roa, Be Gran Leo and Bat Blue, Mini Blondie and American Boy, Be Batman Cheeto and Robincito, American Star and Redador and Loco Valentino, Be Babe Star and Kid Guzman and Enemigo Publico, Connect and Arrow Flash and Capitan America, Be Super Crazy and El Signo and Angel Satanico, Principe Maya, Be Mr. Jack DQ. December 29th, Rossville, Georgia, TWA, Woody Woodchuck, Be Samurai Dragon, Mr. Payne, Be Scott James, Chuck Colt, Be Johnny Quaz, Roger Sartain, Be Rick Justice, Michael Collins, Be Joel Travis. January 1st, Sendai Michinoku Pro 2000 Sellout, Terry Boy, Be Masato Yakashiji, Shiryu Kuryone, Jinjin Taka Michinoku and Grand Naniwa and Super Delphin, Be Great Sasuke and Tiger Mask and Now Hiro Hoshikawa. January 2nd, Mexico City Arena Coliseo, EMLL 100, Angel de Plata and Pegaso, Be Babe Richard and Fiero, Filoso and Scorpio, Be Supremo and Antifaz, Tanya and Maria del Angel, Be Guerrero Purpura and La Diabolica, Yoshihiro Tajiri and Cyclone Ramirez and Atlantico, Be America and Alcon Negro and Moger, Dandy and Dos Caras and La Fiera, Be Mascara, Año 2000 and El Signo and Cajos DQ. January 3rd, Tokyo Korakuen Hall, All Japan, 2100 Sellout, Masao Inoue, Be Kentaro Shiga, Rex King and Steve Dahl, Be Monakia Mossman and Yoshinari Ogawa, Satoru Asako, Be Ryukaku Izumida, Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mitsuo Momota, Be Mighty Inoue and Haruka Eigen and Masafuchi, The Lacrosse and Johnny Ace, Be Joel Deaton and Gary Albright, Kenda Kobashi and Tamon Honda, Be Akira Tao and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi, Shiga 111-man Battle Royal, Stan Hansen and Bobby Duncombe Jr. Be The Patriot and the Eagle, Mitsuharu Masawa and Jun Akiyama, Be Toshiaki Kawada and Takao Mori. January 3rd, Tokyo Korakuen Hall, All Japan Women, 2100 Sellout, Mina Taniyama, Be Mari Mogami, Japanese Tag Title, Ritamata and Yumi Fukawa, Be Kumiko Makawa and Nobuendo Tashio Yamada and Yoshiko Tamura and Misai Watanabe, Be Mariko Yoshida and Shaparito Asari and Yukishina, Saki Hasegawa, Be Tomoko Watanabe, Asia Kong and Mima Shimoda, Be Atsuko Mita and Yumiko Hata, Kyoko Inoue and Takako Inoue, Be Manami Toyota and Kaoru Ito. January 4th, Tokyo Korakuen Hall, All Japan Women, 2100 Sellout, Handicap Match, Nobu Endo and Misai Watanabe BKO Nomi and Mari Mogami and Mina Taniyama, Shaparito Asari and Kumiko Ma Kawabe Yoshiko Tamura and Yumi Fukawa, Mariko Yoshida Yuka Shina Mima Shimoda and Yumiko Hatabe Atsuko Mita and Takako Inoue, Tashio Yamada Saki Hasegawa, Manami Toyota Ri Tamada, Asia Kong and Kaoru Ito Tomoko Watanabe and Kyoko Inoue. January 4th Cartersville, Georgia Power Slam Wrestling Federation, Billy Montana Good Old Boy, John Arden Demon of Destruction, Rob McBride Big Huff, Bubba Humphreys and Destruction and Boy and Huff McBride and Ken Arden and Montana and John Arden. January 4th Shelbyville, Tennessee, All-State Wrestling, 221 Glenn Mullins Fair and Square DQ, Shane Morton Quentin Quaresma, Kevin the Thumper Steve Morton Nightmare Chris Kearns, Strictly Business Jason Vaughn and Smooth Operator DQ, Gypsy Joe DDQ The Punisher, Backweed Brawlers Ben Mullins and Ashley Hudson. January 5th Philadelphia ECW Arena, ECW 1150 Sellout, 911 and Rey Mysterio Jr. Eliminators 4 stars, Rob Van Dam Axel Rotten 2 and 3/4 stars. ECW TV title, 2 Cold Scorpio Mikey Whipwreck to win title 3 stars. Taz Hack Myers 1 1/2 star, Bubba Ray Dudley Jimmy Del Rey 1 1/4 stars, Bad Crew NC Tony Stetson and JT Smith 1 1/2 star, ECW title, Sandman Conan 3 1/2 stars, Sabu Steve Richards 4 stars. Public Enemy Gangstas 3 1/2 stars. January 5th Uniondale, New York Nassau Coliseum WWF, 5100, fought to Bob Backlund, Henry Godwin Rad Radford Goldust Bob Holly, Ahmed Johnson Davey Boy Smith DQ, Skip and Zip Tom Pritchard, Barry Horowitz and Marty Jannetty, WWF Tag Titles, Smoking Guns Jerry Lawler and Isaac Yonkem, Savio Vega Hunter Hurst Helmsley DQ, Razor Ramon and Diesel Sid and Jeff Jarrett, Bret Hart and Undertaker Owen Hart and Yokozuna. January 5th Wakamatsu, All Japan, 2600, Mighty Inoue Monakia Mossman, Rex King and Steve Dalby Masao Inoue and Satoru Asako, Takao Mori Kentaro Shiga, Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mitsuo Momoda Ryukaku Izumida and Haruka Iganen and Masa Fuji 2102. The Lacrosse and the Eagle Tsugashi Kikuchi and Yoshinari Ogawa, The Patriot and Johnny Ace Joel Deaton and Bobby Duncombe Jr., Stan Hansen and Gary Albright Kenta Kobashi and Tamon Honda, Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao Mitsuharu Masawa and Jun Akiyama. January 5th Tokyo Korakuen Hall FMW, 2150 Sellout Nanjo Makayato Gasaku Goshigawara, Bad Nurse Nakamura Aki Kambayashi, Hideki Hasaka Tetsuhiro Kuroda, Katsutoshi Niyama Ricky Fuji, Megumi Kudo and Kaori Nakayama Combat Toyota and Yukari Ishikura. World Brass Knucks title, Super Leather and Jason the Terrible Horace Boulder and Hisakatsu Oya to win titles, Bunkhouse Deathmatch. Haido and Wing Kanemura and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga Koji Nakagawa and Masato Tanaka and Hayabusa. January 5th Osaka War 2000 Sellout, Takao Okamura Damien, Daitoko Masaki Mochizuki Shinobu Kandori and Michiko Omukai Gen Yukari and Rumi Kazama, Lance Storm Yuji Yasurioka, NWA Middleweight title Ultimo Dragon Battle Ranger, Nobutaka Araya and Arashi and Koki Kitahara and Genichiro Tenryu Shinichi Nakano and Geto and Jado and Hiramichi Fuyuki 2459. January 5th Onamachi Eva 500, Toko Ichiki Emi Motokawa, Flying Kid Ichihara and Hironobu Kikuzawa Daisuke Tao and Tuta the Turtle, Leatherface Katsumi Hirano, Tiger Jeet Singh Takashi Okano, Headhunters Cactus Jack and Keizo Matsuda, Tarzan Goto and Mr. Ganasuke Shoji Nakamaki and Keisuke Yamada 2140. January 5th Ponce PR WWC Mascarada Sagrada and Octagon Cheeto Pirate Tita Morgan and Dorito Estrada, Sangre Tiana Ricky Santana, Ray Gonzalez Sean Morley DQ, Blackjack Bennett Pepe Gomez, WWC TV title, Sweet Brown Sugar, Skip Young, Mighty Kodiak DQ, Kenny Kendall Lale, Hurricane Castillo Jr. Tahitian Warrior, El Bronco DDQ Invader No. 1, Universal title, Carlos Mabel DQ. January 5th Jasper Indiana 175, Flying Angel Carolina Kid, Rocking Rebel Indiana Warrior Vampire Warrior, David Heath Dirty White Boy, Luna Vachon Debbie T. Wild, Body Snatcher Bullpain, Dutch Mantle Robert Gibson, Taipei Death Match, Ian Rotten Madman Pondo. January 5th Fall Branch Tennessee, Southern States Wrestling, Death and Destruction Cooper Brothers, Tennessee Thumper NC Deadly Weapon, Christian Brothers Alan King and Justin St. John, Eddie Bruiser Equalizer, Eddie Golden and Stan Lee Bo James and Ricky Morton. January 5th Rossville, Georgia, TWA, Sam Colt Chuck Colt, Michael Collins Joel Travis DQ, Johnny Quasby Scott James, Jimmy Sharp b. Keith Hart, Roger Sartain and Rick Justice b. Warlock and Mr. Payne. January 6, New Haven, Connecticut, WWF, 4800, Fada b. Bob Backlund, Skip and Zip b. Barry Horowitz and Marty Jannetty, Henry Godwin b. Rad Radford, Bob Holly b. Sid, WWF Tag Titles, Smoking Guns b. Jerry Lawler and Isaac Yankem, Goldust b. Savio Vega, Razor Ramon and Diesel b. Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Jeff Jarrett, Bret Hart and Undertaker b. Owen Hart and Yokozuna. January 6, Viamon PR Hiram Bithorn Stadium, WWC 6000, Sweet Brown Sugar b. Tahitian Warrior, Kenny Kendall b. Lale, Mascarita Sagrada and Octagon Cheeto b. Piratita Morgan and Dorito Estrada, Invader No. 1 b. El Bronco, Chain Match, Ray Gonzalez b. Ricky Santana, Cage Match, Hurricane Castillo Jr. b. Sean Morley, Sangre Tiana b. Blackjack Bennett DQ, WWC TV Title, Mighty Kodiak b. Pulgarcito, Universal Title, Carlos Colon b. Mabel to win vacant title. January 6, Imabari, All Japan, 1,350 sellout, Rex King b. Kentaro Shiga, Steve Dahl b. Ryukaku Izumida, Tamon Honda b. Monokia Mossman, Mighty Inoue and Haruka Eigen and Masafuchi b. Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mitsuo Momota, Joel Deaton and the Lacrosse b. Masao Inoue and Yoshinari Ogawa, Jun Akiyama and Takao Mori b. Bobby Duncombe Jr. and Johnny Ace, Stan Hansen and Gary Albright b. The Patriot and the Eagle, Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi b. Mitsuo Harumasawa, and Kenta Kobashi and Satoru Osako 2102. January 6, Battle Creek, Michigan, WKC, 3000, Don Fry b. Mofield Moreno, Frank Shamrock b. Eric Heberstreet, Kickboxing Rules, Kit Lickens b. Tim Guy, Geza Coleman Jr. b. Scott Damore, Pentagon Cage Match for WKC title, Dan Severn b.D. Low Brown. January 6, Takada, Eva 1200, Hatsumi Hirano and Takeshi Sato b. Daisuke Tao and Tutor the Turtle, Kyoko Ichiki b. Emi Motokawa, Headhunters b. Keizo Matsuda and Keisuke Yamada, Takashi Okano b. Flying Kid Ichihara, Tiger Jeet Singh b. Leatherface, Cactus Jack and Shoji Nakamaki b. Tarzan Goto and Mr. Ganasuke. January 6, Thanyo WAR, Yuji Yasarioka b. Battle Ranger, Lance Storm b. Masaki Mochizuki Ultimo Dragon b. Damien, Shinobu Kondori and Michiko Omukai b. Gen Yukari and Rumi Kazama, Arashi b. Deitoko, Hiromichi Fuyuki and Geto b. Nobutaka Araya, and Koki Kitahara, Genichiro Tenryu b. Jado. January 6, Okayama FMW, Kaori Nakayama and Yuki Nabano b. Aki Kanbayashi and Combat Toyota, Horace Boulder b. Hideki Hasaka, Riki Fuji and Hisakatsu Oya b. Nanjo and Koji Nakagawa, Yukari Ishikura and Megumi Kudo b. Miwa Sato and Bad Nurse Nakamura, Super Leather, Mike Kirchner, and Jason the Terrible b. Gasaku Goshigawara and Katsutoshi Niyama, Street Fight, Haido and Wing Kane Mora and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga b. Tetsuhiro Kuroda and Hayabusa and Masato Tanaka. January 6, Tokyo Korakuen Hall Wrestle Dream Factory, 500, One-Night Singles Tournament, Shinobi Soldier, Shinigami b. Anyo b. Hiroyoshi Katsubo, Shinichi Nakano b. Shino, Kamikaze b. Azteca, Hirofumi Miura b. Shinigami, Anyo b. Masayoshi Motegi, Kamikaze b. Nakano, Miura b. Anyo, Kamikaze b. Miura to win tournament. January 6, New Albany, Indiana, Robert Burcham b. Rocking Rebel, Dutch Mandel b. Rip Rogers, Body Snatcher b. Austin James, Vampiro Warrior and Luna Vachon b. Bull Payne and Debbie T. Wild, Broken Glass Barbed Wire Thumbtacks Mousetrap Deathmatch, Ian Rotten b. Madman Pondo. January 7, Albany, New York, WWF, 3700, Fata b. Bob Backlund, Savio Vega b. Hunter Hearst Helmsley DQ, Goldust b. Henry Godwin, Skip and Zip b. Barry Horowitz and Bob Holly, WWF Tag Titles, Smoking Guns b. Davey Boy Smith and Isaac Yankem, Ahmed Johnson b. Owen Hart, IC Title Razor Ramon b. Jeff Jarrett, Undertaker b. Yokozuna, Cage Match for WWF Title, Bret Hart b. Diesel. January 7, Yoatahama All Japan, 1800, Tsuyoshi Kikuchi b. Steve Dahl, Ryukaku Izumida b. Masao Inoue, Bobby Duncombe Jr. b. Mighty Inoue, Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mitsuo Momota b. Joel Deaton and Haruka Eigen and Masafuchi, the Eagle and the Lacrosse b. Monokia Mossman and Takao Mori, Yoshinari Ogawa and Akira Tao b. Kenta Kobashi and Kentaro Shiga, The Patriot and Johnny Ace b. Toshiaki Kawada and Tamon Honda, Mitsuo Harumasawa and Jun Akiyama and Satoru Asako b. Stan Hansen and Gary Albright and Rex King. January 7, Tokyo Korakuen Hall War 2000 Sellout, Battle Ranger b. Damien, Deitoko b. Kamikaze, Yuji Yasarioka b. Masaki Mochizuki, Shinichi Nakano b. Takao Okamura, in Junior Title Ultimo Dragon b. Lance Storm, War 6-Man Titles Nobutaka Araya and Arashi and Koki Kitahara d. Hiromichi Fuyuki and Geto and Jado 60 Minutes. January 7, Osaka FMW 2350 sellout Tetsuhiro Kuroda Bigasaku Goshigawara, Yuki Nabano and Kaori Nakayama Biaki Kambayashi and Yukari Ishikura, Riki Fuji B Nanjo, Megumi Kudo B Miwasato, Oris Boulder and Hisakatsu Oya B Jason the Terrible and Hideki Hasaka, Super Leather B Katsutoshi Niyama, Street Fight, Haido and Wing Kanemura and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga B Hayabusa and Masato Tanaka and Koji Nakagawa. January 7, Akaho Eva 820 Katsumi Hirano B Takeshi Sato, Tutor the Turtle and Flying Kid Ichihara B Takashi Okano and Daisuke Tao Sato 1 Battle Royal, Tiger Jeet Singh B Keisuke Yamada, Tarzan Goto and Mr. Ganasuke B Cactus Jack and Keizo Matsuda 2550, Barbed Wire Board Deathmatch. Headhunters B Leatherface and Shoji Nakamaki. January 7, Tokyo Korakuen Hall, JWP, 2010 sellout, Kanoka Matoya B Yuki Miyazaki, Tomoko Miyaguchi B Riko Amano, Devil Masami and Fuseo Naochi and Saburo B Tomoko Kuzumi and Hiromi Yagi and Commando Boyshoi 2159, Dynamite Kansai and Mayumi Ozaki B Akari Fukuoka and Cutie Suzuki 2354. January 7 ME, All Japan Women, 1220 Yumi Fukawa and Mari Mogami B Ko Nomi and Mina Tanayama, Yoshiko Tamura B Misai Watanabe Tomoko Watanabe and Kumiko Makawa and Nobu Endo B Kaoru Ito and Saki Hasegawa and Yuka Shina, Yumiko Hata and Asia Kong B Takako Inoue and Atsuko Mita, Tashio Yamada B Shaparita Asari Kyoko Inoue and Mima Shimoda B Minami Toyota, and Mariko Yoshida. January 7 San Herman PR WWC, Kenny Kendall B LX Saudiko, Sweet Brown Sugar B Tahitian Warrior, Mascarita Sagrada and Octagon Cheeto B Piratita Morgan and Dorito Estrada, Chain Match, Ray Gonzalez B Ricky Santana, Cage Match Hurricane Castillo Jr. B Sean Morley, Sangre Tiana B Blackjack Bennett DQ, WWC TV Title, Mighty Kodiak B Pool Garcido, Universal Title, Mabel B Carlos to win title. January 8 North Charleston, South Carolina WCW Monday Nitro Taping, 2300 paid Bubba Rogers B Renegade, Nasty Boys B Bobby Eaton and Johnny Grunge, Chris Benoit B Alex Wright 3 1/2 stars, Eddie Guerrero B Steve Regal 2 1/4 stars, Sting B Diamond Dallas Page 1 1/4 stars, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage B Ric Flair and Arnold Anderson 1 star. January 8 Burlington, Vermont WWF, 2500 sellout, Savio Vega B Barry Horowitz, Goldust B Bob Holly, Henry Godwin B Isaac Yonkem, Fodder B Bob Backlund, WWF Tag Titles, Smoking Guns B Skip and Zip, Razor Ramon and Diesel B Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Jeff Jarrett, Bret Hart and Undertaker B Yokozuna and Owen Hart. Special thanks to Kim Lamberth, Peggy Watkins, Sarah Moore, Ken McBride, Peggy Watkins, Faye Ferguson, Chuck Laundreman, Casey Stefan, Steve Dr. Lucha Sims, Christine Griscabbage, Jesse Money, Mike Mooneyham, Gary Langevin, Phil Jones. EMLL. The political situation gets more volatile by the week. Juan Herrera of CMLL, who made an apparent break with MLL a few weeks back and began wooing Antonio Pena, formed his own promotion called Revolution, and got a stable of mid-card wrestlers, mainly the likes of Parata Morgan, Blue Demon Jr., Phantasma, Solar and MS1 for the 10 bi-weekly arenas he promotes in the DF. On January 1st, he promoted a show that was supposed to have MLL, Promel and Triple A wrestlers all appearing. However, the MLL wrestlers all no-showed. Herrera then assured Pena he was with him because he couldn't get along with Chavo Ludaroff, who was back working in the MLL office. But on January 6th, called Pena up and told him that Paco Alonso had offered him the booking job. But by the next day Herrera was at an Triple A show and said that Alonso wanted wrestler Mano Negra to be co-booker, and he didn't want to share the responsibilities and that he hadn't made up his mind. While all this was going on, EMLL drew 2 very poor houses, like about 100 to 200 at each building, for television tapings on Tuesday and Friday at Arena Coliseo. That's with all kids free for all television tapings and Mexico City area house shows for the month of January. The January 5th main event having Apollo Dantes and El Satanico and Mocho Cota over Hector Garza, and Atlantis and El Hijo del Santo when Satanico fouled Garza for the 3rd fall pin. Cynthia Moreno is pregnant, so she'll be out of action for a while. It's reported that the father is a pro baseball player. Moreno isn't married. AAA. The January 20th house show in Chicago has been postponed with no new date announced, but they are considering a date in mid-February. Antonio Inoki is scheduled for a meeting on January 12th with Pena and John Arezzi regarding promoting the March 3rd show in Los Angeles. Cien Caras officially worked as a full-fledged babyface on January 5th in Neza, teaming with Octagon and Mascara Sagrada vs. Cibernetico and Pentagon and Pierroth Jr., which sold out a 3,000-seat arena. Caras got a huge reaction. They also sold out another 3,250-seater on January 6 in Mexico City with Conan and La Parca and Tinieblas Jr. losing to Los Villanos in the main event when Conan was pinned after the Villanos did a third fall switch. Martha Villalobos has moved to Arizona and has left this group to work for Jaguar Yokota's Japanese promotion, New Japan. The next house show will be January 21 at Korakuen Hall with an interesting lineup with El Samurai defending the UWA Junior title against Shinjiro Otani, Keiji Muto and Jushin Liger vs Shinya Hashimoto and Koji Kanemoto, Osamu Kido and Junji Hirata and Akira Nagami and Takashi Iizuka and Tada Yasuda vs Shiro Koshinaka and Kengo Kimura and Kunyaki Kobayashi and Michiyoshi Ohara and Akatoshi Saito and Hiroyoshi Tenzan and Satoshi Kojima forming a tag team to face Hiro Saito and Masa Chono. The latter match is the first meeting of Chono vs Tenzan since the breakup, and will probably also show where Kojima's direction is going. The next tour will be February 3rd to February 25th, and there may be no foreigners used during the tour as none have been announced as yet for any key matches. From what I gather, because of the success the group has been having using Japanese versus Japanese, Riki Choshu is pretty much convinced they don't need foreigners, and New Japan has more wrestlers under contract than it can put on any show anyway, and wasn't successful last year in doing B-Team, Ishingun shows, so the need for foreigners isn't there. By the way, Choshu considers people like Scott Norton and Chris Benoit not as foreigners. The main item of the next tour will be a 4-team round-robin tournament with Yoji Anjo and Yoshihiro Takayama, UWFI Geto and Hiromichi Fuyuki WAR, Osamu Nishimura and Kojima and Tenzan and Hiro Saito, which is a strange team given the Chono-Tenzan split, with the winners getting a tag title shot at Hashimoto and Hirata's belts on February 25 at Sumo Hall. The tournament dates are February 3rd and February 4th in Sapporo and February 9th in Sendai. The complete shows haven't been announced, but there will be New Japan vs. UW underneath guys 8-man tags both nights in Sapporo, along with the tag tourney matches. On February 3rd, they've already announced Liger defending the IWGP Junior belt against the returning Gran Hamada, and the hair vs. hair match with Kobayashi vs. Nagami. February 11th in Osaka will be headlined by an elimination match with Hashimoto and Hirata and Kensuke Sasaki and Yasuda and Yuji Nagata vs. Team Ishingun, Koshinaka and Kimura and Kobayashi and Ohara and Akatoshi Saito. February 15th in Marukame has Choshu and Kojima vs. Koshinaka and Ohara and Kazuo Yamazaki and Iizuka vs. Muto and Sasaki. They also announced a March 1st Budokan Hall date as a UWF, a show headlined by Takada's first title defense against Koshinaka. The probable Fukuoka Dome main event in May is Takada defending against Hashimoto. Vader reportedly received a $40,000 payoff for the match with Inoki. Other Japan notes. Most of the major groups opened this past week at Korakuen Hall, with every show drawing a full house except Masayoshi Motegi's Tiny Wrestle Dream Factory promotion, which drew a few hundred on January 6th, and that's with them having both afternoon and evening shows on most of the days. All Japan just did the typical stuff, with Kentaro Shiga winning the annual Junior Heavyweight Battle Royal on January 3rd at Korakuen Hall. The only title match for All Japan women on the first two dates was a January 3rd Japanese tag title match with Ri Tamada and Yumi Fukawa keeping the titles, beating Kumiko Makawa and Nobu Endo. The opening night main event had Kyoko and Takako Inoue over Manami Toyota and Kaoru Ito, and the second night had Asia Kong and Ito over Kyoko Inoue and Tomoko Watanabe. FMW ran January 5th with Super Leather, Mike Kirchner, and Jason the Terrible, Roberto Rodriguez, winning the World Brass Knucks tag title from Horace Boulder and Hisakatsu Oya. FMW's World Brass Knucks title held by the Gladiator is now vacant since Gladiator is out of action after having reconstructive knee surgery. Digital TV will be available in Japan starting around September, and there are already plans for a 24-hour wrestling channel, Seriously, which would also include combat sports that appeal to wrestling fans such as UFC, EFC, WCC and K1. This would give many of the smaller groups television exposure. All Japan, New Japan, All Japan Women, Rings and JWP all have contracts with other television entities. I'd suspect that they'd go after deals with American promotions as well to fill the time. War signed FMW underneath wrestlers Damien and Battle Ranger, Ikuhide Ueno. Mr. Pogo is in as well. In Osaka on January 5th, Pogo threw a fireball at Genichiro Tenryu and hinted that he would form a tag team with Hiromichi Fuyuki. However, at the January 7th Korakuen Hall show, after Fuyuki and Geto and Jado had fought to a 60-minute draw challenging for the War 6-man belts against Koki Kitahara and Arashi and Nobutaka Araya, Pogo attacked a worn-out Fuyuki and left him bloody. Pogo then said he was forming his own group of former FMW wrestlers, which would have Big Titan Dr. Luther, Lynn St. Clair from Calgary, Dr. Hannibal, Steve Gillespie from Calgary, Damien and Battle Ranger, and they would feud with both Tenryu's group and Fuyuki's group starting on January 23 at Korakuen Hall, which would have Fuyuki and Geto and Jado versus Pogo and Titan and Ranger. On the same Korakuen show, Ultimo Dragon kept his international junior title, pinning Lance Storm. JWP also had an interesting show on January 7 at Korakuen Hall with Bison Kimura showing up at the card challenging JWP champ Dynamite Kansai for a match that will take place on March 3 at Korakuen Hall. Also on March 3, Jaguar Yokota will probably face Devil Masami. Yokota and Masami had classic battles in the early 80s over the WWWA singles title and also had memorable matches against the Crush Gals during the same era. Saki Hasegawa of AJW will appear on the February 11 JWP show at Korakuen Hall facing Hikari Fukuoka. They also announced their biggest show of the year would be on October 13 at Sumo Hall and will be aired as a live WoW equivalent to HBO special. Tatsumi Fujinami will work 3 dates for Takashi Ishikawa's Tokyo Pro Wrestling Company in late March and early April. K1 is interested in trying to market Kiyoshi Tamura as a new idol shooter. The group had been built around Masaki Sadake, a kickboxer, as its idol and drawing card, but he's past his prime now, and they need a new face. The idea would be to bring in UFC guys with credibility and have them put Tamura over to create the Aura. Japan has its own super shooter. The last word from Tamura is that he still considers himself a pro wrestler, although he hasn't done any pro wrestling since I basically went down. USWA. We don't have complete results from the January 3 show, but the crowd was about 800 fans and $5,500, with Doug Gilbert winning the Royal Rumble to earn the shot at the WWF's Royal Rumble. The main angle at the house show was creating a 4-way feud among tag teams of Rock and Roll Express, PG-13, Gilbert and Tommy Rich and Tracy Smothers, and Jesse James Armstrong. In a death match between Randar vs. PG, Armstrong tried to interfere getting the hubcap, but when he tried to hit D, he moved and ended up hitting Ricky Morton, who couldn't continue in the match. After the match, Armstrong and Smothers attacked PG-13 and were doing a number on them when Rich and Gilbert ran in. Rich went to hit Armstrong, who ducked, and wound up hitting JC Ice. By the time it was over, all 4 teams were brawling against the other 3. Earlier in the show, Rich and Gilbert captured the USWA tag titles, beating Smothers and Armstrong in a match where they would have to leave town had they lost. Rich and Gilbert then did a television interview saying they'd defend the belts against anyone, and both Smothers and Armstrong and Page 13 came out. Smothers and Armstrong ended up leaving, and the two-face teams argued with Rich and Gilbert, saying it was Ice's fault that he couldn't hold Armstrong and that's why Rich accidentally hit them, and the teams started fighting but were quickly broken up. Jerry Lawler threw a fireball at Scott Bowden on the January 3 show. On January 10, Lawler is putting up his old Southern Heavyweight title belt, which was the area's top singles title for most of the period from 1952 to 1987, against Tex Slazinger's USWA title. Lance Russell was building up the match, talking about the legendary names from the 50s, 60s and 70s who held the historic belt Lawler was putting up. The story is that when the belt was retired and merged into forming one singles title in the territory, at the time called CWA champion, that Lawler, because he held the title at the time and held it so many dozens of times, was given permanent possession of the belt. Bowden then made fun of the different names, saying they were all either dead or in rehab by now. Complete January 10 lineup for Memphis has a new masked wrestler called Dark Death vs. Spellbinder, Downtown Bruno, now a face, versus Bowden, who gives a great interview in a garbage can match. Miss Texas defends the women's title against Lady Satan. Brian Christopher vs. Coco Ware, Rock and Roll vs. Armstrong and Smothers, PG-13 vs. Rich and Gilbert, with the winners meeting as the main event of the show. The team that comes out at the end of the night will probably get a shot at the WWF tag titles in February when the WWF runs a house show in Memphis. The co-feature is the Slazenger vs. Lawler match. ECW. The official attendance for the Queen's show was 1,283 in the building, which was more than capacity. 1,183 paid and $27,410. All 3 numbers are almost assuredly all-time records for the promotion. The attendance for December 28 in Glenolden, Pennsylvania was a sellout 574, 558 paid, and in Reading, Pennsylvania on December 30 was 398, 381 paid. Most accounts were that the January 5 ECW Arena show was a very strong show. The opener, which was a risk, putting Rey Mysterio Jr. in against the Eliminators and putting 911 in a match as Mysterio's partner, was apparently a big success with a 4 stars opener. Mysterio Jr. did a moonsault over the post to the floor on both Eliminators, and ended up winning by doing a Frankensteiner off 911's shoulders onto Perry Saturn, who was on John Crona's shoulders. After the match, the Eliminators did their high-low, the old Midnight Express Devil Goozle, on 911 and then beat on Mysterio Jr. Taz ran in and choked out 911. At this point the Pit Bulls ran in to attack the Eliminators, and they ended up doing the high-low on Francine, who was left for dead. They'll almost surely do a 6-person with Pit Bulls and Francine versus Eliminators and Jason for January 27th when they return. Rob Van Dam, who will probably be a heel here, debuted beating Axel Rotten. In the match where Too Cold Scorpio won the TV title from Mikey Whipwreck, Whipwreck was booed at the beginning. At one point he did a dive way into the stands. Before the Bubba Ray Dudley vs. Jimmy Del Rey match, Damian Kane came out as Del Rey's manager and gave Mr. Hughes to Del Rey as his bodyguard. Shane Douglas returned to a surprisingly great reaction, Dean is dead chance, and said he'd teach Dudley to speak perfect English. Sandman vs. Conan for the ECW title was said to be a very good and extremely brutal match. Conan juiced heavy and was beat to death with the cane. Mysterio Jr. ran out and gave Conan a cane and he made a comeback. Finish saw both men bloody and exhausted and collapsed on the mat. Conan couldn't beat the 10 count while Woman helped Sandman to his feet. The crowd razzed Conan to death since he was leaving for WCW and they don't like him much to begin with and they love Sandman, so Conan worked as a heel. Among the chants at him were US Chump, One Man Gang and singing that he's going to perform sexual acts on Eric Bischoff. At the end, Conan gave a speech where he said he's been all over the world and there's one great champion and it's Sandman and said that he'll always have ECW in his heart, said that you 6 sons of bitches are why ECW's #1 and that isn't goodbye, it's just till next time. Sabu pinned Stevie Richards in a 4 stars match as well. Rey Mysterio Jr. vs. Psychosis will take place on February 3rd at the next Queen's show. Paul Heyman said that it is ECW company policy, in reference to a letter in last week's Observer regarding the Salisbury, Massachusetts show and also a note in the ECW section last week spurred by the letter this week, to announce if anyone isn't there and to offer refunds through intermission. He said they made an announcement regarding Scorpio in Salisbury, Massachusetts and that one person asked for a refund and was given it, and that they made announcements in Glenolden, Pennsylvania about Steve Austin and the Heavenly Bodies, and that nobody at that show asked for refunds. Here and there. WWC held its biggest show in a long time, drawing 6,000 fans to Hiram Bithorn Stadium on January 6 as Carlos Colon won the Universal title for the 134th time, beating Mabel. The belt had been held up. However, on January 7 in San Herman, Puerto Rico, Mabel pinned Colon to win the title. The top gimmick matches on both shows saw Hurricane Castillo Jr. beat Sean Morley in a cage and Ray Gonzalez beat Ricky Santana in a chain match. Mexican Minis. Mascara de Sagrada and Octagon Cheeto beat Jurito Estrada and Piratita Morgan as well. Colon gets a shot at Mabel's belt on January 20th. Wrestling legend Danny Hodge just finished doing a movie in Los Angeles called One More Shot that he co-stars in. The movie is about a former college wrestling champion in his early 40s, whose life is going nowhere and goes on a quest to make the Olympic team against all odds. Hodge plays a wrestling legend who meets the guy when he's down and out and coaches him. The movie was put together by Wayne Boyd, who also stars in the movie. Boyd was an NCAA wrestling champion in 1969 at 123 pounds and the story is loosely based on his own life. The movie is scheduled for a spring release. Hodge probably was born 40 years too soon, because if he was around today he'd have a good shot at cleaning up in UFC competition, being that he's the only man to hold national championships in both wrestling. He is considered an all-time great in both amateur and pro, and boxing, national Golden Gloves champion in just 1 year after taking the sport up. The biggest crowd for an indie show in a long time was on January 6 in Battle Creek, Michigan for a show billed as shoot fighting rather than pro wrestling, promoted by Kit Lickens, an area kickboxer, and was held in conjunction with martial arts seminars conducted by names like Dan Severn, Ken Shamrock, Oleg Toktarov, Ron Van Cleef and other UFC names. The show drew 3,000 fans with tickets at $15 and $20, with Severn beating D. Lo Brown in a cage match in the main event for what was billed as the WKC World Heavyweight Championship. Severn tackled Brown so hard into the cage that it collapsed and some of the wrestlers had to hold the cage in place for the rest of the short match. Both that match and a match with pro wrestlers Geza Kallman Jr. and Scott D'Amore were worked shoot style, with the latter match stealing the show. Frank Shamrock, with Ken in his corner, made his American wrestling debut beating Eric Heberstreit in a match that was a legitimate 100% shoot build for the WKC Light Heavyweight title. Dennis Corluzzo's Eddie Gilbert tribute show on February 3rd in Cherry Hill, New Jersey looks to have Tommy Rich vs. Tracy Smothers, Sabu, who will also work for ECW that same night in Queens, versus Devon Storm, Jerry Lawler vs. Doug Gilbert, Dory Funk vs. Tommy Gilbert, and Dan Severn will appear. Corluzos is trying to book Severn against Al Snow, although that match isn't finalized because WWF may be using Snow by then. Despite a match over Thanksgiving weekend being billed as the final match for Wahoo McDaniel, he was still working as of this past week. Sickest match of the week was January 6th in New Albany, Indiana, with Ian Rotten vs. Madman Pondo in a match with barbed wire in one corner, broken glass in another, thumbtacks in a third, and loaded mouse traps in the fourth. They ended up fighting with glass sticking out of both of their heads. Japan's Michinoku Pro Wrestling is planning a tour of England in early February with a February 6th date, Gordon already confirmed. They'll be taking 6 guys over: Great Sasuke, Tiger Mask, Sato, Terry Boy, Hanzo Nakajima, and Shiryu, and work for Brian Dixon's group. Gary Landrevin is running a show on February 11th at the National Guard Armory in Newport, Vermont, with a battle royal on top. An Ultimate Warrior comic book should be hitting the stand soon. Actually called The Warrior, the comic book is about a young punk transforms his life through the powers of self-belief, so that's how he did it. ICW on February 10th in Wallace, North Carolina at Hill High School is Mark Ash vs. Ricky Morton. Sunshine Wrestling Federation on January 19th in Miami has Vampiro Warrior vs. Asian Dragon. Bob Harmon, WWF's Beautiful Bobby from the 60s and early 70s, will wrestle Rusty Brooks on the show. UFC. Hard Copy did a UFC investigation on January 3rd which was about what you'd expect from an exploitative story. Really bad. The story claimed that 2 men are locked inside a cage with no time limit until one man either submits or is knocked unconscious. Great investigative work there. The story said that there have been plenty of broken bones and concussions, but surprisingly, no deaths, and called attending a UFC event an orgy of sex and violence. Boy, it must have been in the wrong place at the wrong time or something. ABC's 2020 spent a day with Dan Severn this past week for a segment on UFC scheduled for February. KGO Radio's Ron Owens Show, which is the most popular radio show in Northern California, is scheduled to have Senator John McCain and Bob Merowitz as guests on January 10th. La Opinion, the Los Angeles area's leading Spanish-language newspaper, reported that the December 29th show in Compton, California with La Parca, Psicosis, and Rey Mysterio Jr. drew the all-time record crowd, in excess of 500, and gate in that arena. With the exception of Memphis, Louisville, and Nashville, Sergio Garcia's Compton shows may be the only promotion that has run weekly at the same arena for 2 years straight. WCW. Results from Monday Nitro on January 8th in North Charleston, South Carolina, about 5,000 in the building, 2,300 paid, $28,000, saw Chris Benoit pin Alex Wright in 640 with a dragon suplex in a very good match, hurt by the announcers, who literally still can't call a match, 3.5 stars. Brian Pillman was at ringside, and from the commentary by Eric Bischoff, it sounds like he isn't long for WCW. They kept talking about problems with the Horsemen. They cut off the camera mic when Pillman was at ringside, and after it was over and Pillman spat on Wright, Bischoff said, "Don't be surprised if you don't see Brian Pillman in WCW a lot longer." The irony on Pillman is that the more out of control he gets, the better he is as a heel, and he's probably the best heel in the business right now, but everyone is afraid of him because they think he's out of control. Benoit was cheered in this match. Eddie Guerrero pinned Steve Regal with a backslide in 8:08. No heat at all. There was some good wrestling and some missed spots, but the storyline they were trying to get over, Guerrero as the underdog pulling a major upset, didn't work either live or on television because 98% of the viewers had to figure going in Guerrero was going to win. Big disappointment, 2.25 stars. Sting and Lex Luger did an interview with Luger acting as a heel and everyone booing him but Sting not figuring it out. Luger asked Sting to form a tag team with him starting at the Clash, and Sting agreed. This would have made more sense if they hadn't already announced the match on television 2 days earlier, but what can be said at this point? Sting beat Dallas Page with the Scorpion in 6:20. Not good. Crowd still dead, 1.25 stars. Main had Hogan and Savage over Flair and Anderson in 14:28 when Hogan leg dropped Anderson. This was just terrible. The crowd appeared mixed on television, but talking to those live said it was decidedly pro-Flair, and what sounded like a reaction for Hogan was actually cheers for Flair. Hey, that's what I was told from those who were there live. People left the arena really mad because Flair does the exact same spots with Hogan every time out, and when you see it 3 out of 4 weeks, overexposure doesn't even begin to describe it. It wouldn't be so bad if the crowd was getting off on it, which they don't, or if the wrestling was stiff so there's believability, which it's anything but. It just gets sloppier, slower, and more transparent by the week. Before the show, they did a test of crowd reaction because they were going to have Hogan and Savage do an interview to air during Thunder in Paradise, but the crowd booed the mention of Hogan and Savage's names so much they decided against it. Hogan sold even less this week, including popping up immediately from Arnold Anderson's spinebuster, this time without even taking a 2 count before making the comeback. They really need to hide these guys because they're exposing their weaknesses to everyone, particularly Hogan and Savage, whose performances both gave the WWF skits portraying as has-beens an awful lot of credibility. Pillman and Benoit tried to do a run-in but were stopped by Kevin Sullivan and Zodiac. The Giant then attacked Hogan and Savage and choke-slammed them both, but then Zodiac stopped Giant. Hogan wants him back as a babyface with a push, with the argument that Eric got his friend Page into a good spot, so why can't he get his best friend into a good spot, forgetting that Page may have been given a chance against a lot of people's wishes, but he delivered, whereas Zodiac has been given a zillion shots and failed to deliver. 1 star. January 15th from Miami has Savage vs. Luger and Hogan vs. Meng. The more they try and build Nitro around Hogan and Savage every week rather than using them sporadically, in the long run the better chance WWF has of staging a ratings comeback. Ratings for the weekend of December 30th saw Saturday Night do a 2.1 and Pro a 1.5, while main event was preempted. We don't have January 8th ratings or any ratings from the weekend at press time. However, on January 1st, WWF nipped WCW with a 2.6 rating and 3.8 share to WCW's 2.5 and 3.7. The WCW replay did a 1.2/.1. WWF beat WCW on promotion because WCW had Hogan vs. Flair. There is no way to rationalize the result as a positive for WCW when it gave its best possible ratings match and still lost to a gimmick. After winning the national championship, Nebraska linebacker Christian Peters gave a speech upon arrival saying, to quote a great man, Ric Flair, to be the best you've got to beat the best. Who? This made a decent amount of national news. David Taylor or David Finlay may end up in the Blue Bloods tag team if Steve Regal has knee surgery. The one-man gang's title win over Kensuke Sasaki, if that's how it plays on TV, is scheduled to air on January 13th. They also tape on January 10th a Flair vs. Savage match at Center Stage for the same show. Public Enemy was supposed to debut on the show, but Ted Petty was snowed in, so they had Johnny Grunge team with Bobby Eaton in a dark match against Nasty Boys, which was described as a collection of mistimed spots. They had a long boring interview with Mike Ditka on the Saturday Night Show where he talked mainly about football, although they tied it into the show bringing up Steve McMichael. Apparently this will be a 4-part deal with the idea that it's a Super Bowl tie-in. Jacques Rougeau is talking with WCW about coming out of retirement and wrestling, along with promoting WCW shows in Montreal. WCW canceled a house show on January 7th in Columbia, South Carolina due to the snowstorm. WCW is selling advertising for this quarter for Monday's promising advertisers a 2.5 rating, they averaged 2.4. WWF is promising advertisers a 2.7, they also average 2.4. The TV tapings in Orlando, which start February 1st, have been moved from Disney Studios to rival Universal Studios. WCW took out ads in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for a producer, director and production assistant for the Saturday Night Show. Nitro started on January 1st in Germany, and the WCW announcing team includes a 16-year-old boy who doesn't know anything about wrestling nor care about it. He's the son of producer Dieter Krapp. On the first show he spent half the time talking about basketball. Two of the other announcers, Peter William, owner of CWA with Otto Wands, and Nick Helt, are doing a gimmick feud during the show, with William doing a gimmick pretending to be drunk on the air. In regard to the Hogan lawsuit, Gene Okerlund claimed he was with Hogan the entire day in question and nothing happened, and he'd be a character witness in court. That's just what Hogan needs, is Okerlund in a courtroom as a character witness. The last guys who did something that stupid were named Ken Patera and Masa Saito, and they wound up in prison for 3 years. WWF. The price for Royal Rumble was raised from $24.95 to $29.95. The latest regarding additions and the Royal Rumble. Vader is getting a big push on television. He was planning on coming in almost full-time, still making occasional Japan commitments, but as of press time had only agreed to do the Rumble and nothing else. There is a good chance he'll be in as a regular, but it's not a done deal, and he's also in serious discussion with New Japan about working there more regularly in 1996. He has postponed his scheduled shoulder surgery, which was supposed to be this week, to do the Rumble. Outsiders announced this week were Jake Roberts, right now and for only one shot, and Roberts said he's got religious bookings he wants to keep but may work occasional shots in the future, but didn't appear to be interested right now in going full-time. Doug Gilbert, one shot as USWA rep, Takao Omori and Kama, a one shot. Cactus Jack promo started over the weekend, but he won't be in the Rumble and won't do a pay-per-view show until WrestleMania. Dan Severn officially turned WWF down. There was also a situation regarding Sabu. Sabu expressed interest and wanted Dennis Corraluzzo to contact WWF about getting him in for a one-shot. They even worked out a finish to protect him where he'd throw someone over the top, then do a plancha over the top on the guy through a table, but by going over the top, will have eliminated himself while not realizing it. Paul Heyman was against the idea, saying that he wants to do a pay-per-view show in a few months and doesn't want Sabu or anyone else he's building the show around. Sabu will likely wrestle Taz in one of the main events, working on anyone's PPVs right now. Sabu still wanted to do it, but Heyman promised him a bigger payoff and a better spot on the show. Heyman even did a segment in the ring at the ECW arena basically telling Sabu he'd make him a pay-per-view star and saying how the WWF was begging him to get Sabu in the Rumble, and he wouldn't let him go. He was supposed to get back to WWF by Monday morning and they were to announce him on Raw if he decided to do it, so since he wasn't announced, I guess he's not doing it. It was reported a few weeks back on the Jim Scheiman 900 line that Shawn Michaels inherited $2.5 million from a wrestling fan that he didn't know that just passed away. This is a true story. It happened a few months back and word just got out. Michaels had attempted to keep it quiet. At the Michaels press conference in Fresno, he was asked about this and got really mad and said no comment and said not to ever bring the subject up again. Michaels still wants to continue wrestling, although he's probably moving into a bigger house. Davey Boy Smith's trial on aggravated assault charges begins on January 29 in Calgary. The Calgary Sun listed the trial as the highest-profile trial in the city in 1996 ahead of several major local murder cases. Smith is accused of severely injuring a Calgary man on July 25, 1993. Forgot to mention last week in the Raw Bowl that at the end they presented the Lombardi Trophy to the winners, and it ended up being Steve Lombardi, Brooklyn Brawler, presenting a trophy with a cardboard photo of him over it, and he was then doused with iced tea. The idea of Steve Lombardi and Lombardi Trophy was funny, but it wasn't nearly as funny watching the segment. WWF Action Zone was preempted New Year's weekend while Mania did a 1.1 rating. Ashley Allen, who was originally going to be Sister Love, was in a video with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, so she may be his valet. Either way, it's clear she's going to have a major role this year. House shows this weekend were strong, especially considering the horrible weather in the Northeast. Nassau Coliseum on January 5 did $5,100 and $105,000, New Haven on January 6 did $4,800 and $69,000. Albany on January 7 did $3,800 and $50,000, and Burlington, Vermont on January 8 did a sellout $2,500. Most shows were headlined by Brett and Undertaker over Owen and Yokozuna. The semifinals were scheduled as Ramon and Diesel vs. Sid and Kid, however Kid missed the entire weekend, don't know why, and Jarrett was flown in as a replacement. Then Sid was pulled from the semi in New Haven and Helmsley was put in his place and kept the spot all weekend. Sid worked New Haven against Bob Holly, did the job, and didn't work the rest of the shows. There was talk they were going to change the ringmaster name to something less silly, but Steve Austin debuted with that name on Raw. Tom Pritchard's name was changed from Flip to Zip. References at the taping to Flip were talked over in commentary. They wrestled the Guns for the tag titles over the weekend and would win the match, but then have the decision reversed and the match restarted, and then lose. Smith was back this weekend. The injury we listed last week as having been in Las Vegas on December 27 was actually in San Diego on December 28, working against Ahmed Johnson. They did an arm wrestling gimmick early where Johnson is about to win and Smith smashes his head into the table. They used the table for a few early spots in a short match which ends up with Jarrett interfering for the DQ. They aired Brett vs. Smith on Raw with the blood and hyped the fact there was blood the entire show, which certainly makes one skeptical that the blood wasn't pre-planned. A very good source said that blood was planned beforehand, although everyone else denies such a thing. However, on Action Zone, they heavily emphasized that none of the matches on the Rumble pay-per-view would air on television for free. Latest word on Buddy Landel is he had knee surgery and is expected out 3 months. They are making strong references on television that the Goldust gimmick may be all an act to make Razor Ramon off guard and get the title, so they may change the character up, although they played up big that he's a movie buff. There have been lots of complaints from fans at the arena, as he's fondling himself at the shows. John Hawk is headed in after the Rumble as a heel. It's expected that Al Snow will debut with a new gimmick at the next tapings. Wrestling Observer Newsletter. P.O. Box 1228 Campbell, California 950091228 January 15, 1996.